So I'd like to begin by first dedicating this talk to my wife and my daughter, my parents, and all the Aquetza staff and youth who I've had the pleasure of knowing over the past years. What does it mean for an education to have the potential to humanize? It's a concept that I've been grappling with for years now. Maybe because dehumanizing experiences are unfortunately so common in schools and society. I was born and raised in Fresno, California, or the Valley as some folks call it. It's a fertile area of farming and agriculture. My father worked in construction and spent much of my younger years living and working in Long Beach, California. My mother worked her fair share of graveyard shifts as a nurse. This meant that my brother and I spent a great deal of time at my grandmother's house. Now my abuela, she was a woman of faith. She would pray for us every night and gave thanks every morning. She'd fix us breakfast before school and dinner afterwards. In Spanish, we exchange affirmations of love and affection for one another, and I never really thought about how much I associated speaking Spanish with feelings of love and affection, or how integral it was to my own identity, until this was challenged in school. So during the 5th grade, I attended an elementary school on the outskirts of Fresno. On this particular day, we had a substitute teacher who had subbed for us before. About 15 minutes into our subs lecture, my friend Jesus and I began cracking jokes in Spanish about which one of us would win the love of a mutual crush. Pero ¿cómo te va a amar si te faltan dientes? How is she going to love you if you're missing teeth, I said. To which he replied, ¿Y tú? ¿Cómo la vas a proteger si apenas pesas 50 libras? And you, how are you going to protect her if you barely weigh 50 pounds? He had a good point, and we both began to laugh. When our sub heard our laughter, she stopped her lecture, stomped over to Jesus and I. "Stop speaking Spanish," she yelled. She picked me up by my collar, dragged me along with my desk outside the classroom, and used my desk to prop open the door. I was close enough to hear her lecture, but just outside the learning space. Now, I can understand being punished for disrupting the class, but somehow speaking Spanish made it a special offense. I felt a deep sense of humiliation while sitting outside, serving as a warning to others. One of the ways that we try to combat these dehumanizing experiences is through programs like the Aquetza, Youth Education, Leadership, and Community Empowerment Program. Aquetza, in the language of the Nahuatl people of Mexico, roughly translates to lift your chin. The name is intended to embody a sense of perseverance, cultural, and ethnic pride. Aquetza is an academically enriching summer program run by CU Boulder, UMass, and Mecha students. The program serves more than 50 Colorado high school Chicano and Latino youth every summer. The curriculum centers their histories, their culture, their language practices in the U.S. and specifically here in Colorado. Now, a fundamental principle that guides our work in Aquetza is the principle of en laquesh, tú eres mi otro yo, or you are my other me. En laquesh signifies human beings' interconnectedness and a reverence for life. It pushes us to strive to see ourselves in others. This, to me, is a critical aspect of a humanizing education, one in which we recognize, we honor, and we nurture the human potential of our brothers and sisters because we realize that our success is dependent on one another. Now, in my years participating in Aquetza, I've been witness to numerous stories from youth and staff alike. Their stories have changed me in deep and profound ways. They've shown me new parts of myself that I never knew existed, as well as broken my heart in new ways. It's as if they've reached into their chest, tore off a piece of their heart, and placed it into my hands. I'd like to share one experience with you today. It's of a truly brilliant young man, and for the sake of this talk, I'll call him Gonzalo. Gonzalo grew up in a predominantly Mexican and Chicano neighborhood in Denver. He attended a couple different schools, but he struggled. He struggled finding motivation in a lackluster curriculum that failed to speak to his lived experiences and ways of knowing. Now, at first sight, you might easily dismiss Gonzalo. He stood about 5 feet, shaved head, which I personally like, with dark brown skin. His creased pants and Nike Cortezes signified someone who was well-versed in street culture and politics. Yet doing so would fail to acknowledge his many other dimensions even more deep and profound. For example, Gonzalo was well-spoken, he was respectful, he listened twice as much as he talked, and above all, he was extremely astute and intelligent. Even at his young age, it was obvious that he was a leader. Now in Aquetza, we have a daily practice called encuentros. Encuentros are informal gatherings where we come together as an entire program and we make sense of the things that we've been learning throughout the week and how they connect to our lives. And students sharing, staff sharing is actually a common practice. About midway through the program, Gonzalo chose to share a personal story in front of everyone. In his cool, calm kind of way, he walked to the front of the room. He shared his struggles in school, about joining a gang at a young age. He spoke about feeling like his destiny was set for him and that his destiny was to be in prison or worse. He spoke about struggling to balance his academic aspirations with his social and economic realities. Yet he also shared his love of learning. He said that since the age of 4 years old, his only dream was to be an archaeologist. He loved science and he loved learning about past cultures. He shared that Aquetza made him feel like he could be that 4-year-old boy again, filled with joy and potential. It's hard to describe the complex emotions that we were all feeling as we sat listening to Gonzalo. In that moment, I saw a 4-year-old child covered from head to toe with dust from brushing off artifacts preserved over the ages. Could he be the next to discover treasures even more grand than the Dead Sea Scrolls? In that moment, I saw his potential. I saw myself. I thought about my daughter. I thought about the potential of all the youth in the room. Through Aquetza and Gonzalo's story, we were able to see parts of our lives in each other. In essence, together we embodied en la Kesh, you are my other me. Gonzalo's story brings me full circle. He taught me that if we're to work towards becoming more fully human, we start by looking inside. Only after we struggle to see past the smoke that clouds our true selves can we reach a greater place of harmony. You see, Gonzalo gave me the courage to confront my own past experiences. I realized that I had begun to associate speaking Spanish with feelings of shame and guilt, rather than love and affection as I had once felt. Yet through Gonzalo's story and my own reflection, I realized that speaking more than one language only adds richness to a person's life and allows us to connect more deeply with others. I realized that my culture has beauty, and it would be a sin not to share it with the world. In Aquetza, we strive to leverage youth's cultural backgrounds and language to promote an education that edifies the mind, the heart, and the spirit. We strive towards an education that fuels youth's sense of self-worth, or as Dr. Martin Luther King said, a sense that our life has ultimate significance. That is a humanizing education. Thank you.